What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning The Dr. Vibe Show. I have hosted and produced over 2,000 epic conversations over the last 10 years. And what makes our conversations epic? We don't do interviews. We do conversations. What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show. As always, I'd like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. Also know I'm a certified empowerment coach and president and CEO of Express Your Vibe Coaching Communications. It's Wednesday night. We had a little bit of a delay, but most Wednesday evenings, I'm with Jazz Keys from Rockford, Illinois, and we're doing our conversation called Stuff, where we have an international conversation with myself, a black man, and Jazz Keys, a black lady, from a black lady's and black man's POV, called Point of View. For some reason tonight, can't get Jazz on the conversation night, to maybe some technical challenges, but I'm not going to delay it because this gentleman, he jumped on 2 weeks ago, and I said, "Whoa, black ghosts exist." Black ghosts exist. Now, this gentleman and I go back about October 2015 on another platform called Blab, where we first met, and I was very blessed, and many people appreciated his thought process and a lot of stuff that he brought to the table during many of our epic conversations. Hadn't heard from him for a while, and then when he jumped on 2 weeks ago, I told him, "We got to get you on. I'm not playing." So this gentleman's name is Askia Jones. My God, I'll let him tell you about him because I don't want to miss anything. And it's been so good. And I've been sharing with some people, like I don't know if you remember, it's a gentleman from England named Leon.
Yes, I remember Leon. How's
yes, Leon is doing fine. I told him I'm going to have you on. I said, "Oh my gosh!" So I'm speaking it that people will be jumping on this evening. But share about yourself. Give a little background, my friend.
Oh, man. Well, first of all, it's always a pleasure to be on the Dr. Vibe Show, where we have epic conversations.
You better believe that.
A little bit about myself. Well, by trade, I'm a brand consultant. I'm from Tallahassee, Florida. We're currently living in Tallahassee, Florida. One of the things that I do is I own an advertising agency where we develop brand strategies, creative strategies, marketing strategies. We service Fortune 500 companies. We service local companies. The goal is just to be able to just help people tell their story. And that's what we believe in. We believe in helping, whether you're a small business or you're a larger company that wants to try and reinvent yourself and retell your story in a way. Our goal is to figure out how to do that.
Okay. Well, we have many things in common other than being black men. We're both fans of the Florida State Seminoles. We're not going to talk about that conversation tonight because it's not been a good season. Not been a good season. Not at all. But a little background. How did you get into the advertising branding world?
I got in the advertising world. I started out a film major, actually. I was always a really good artist, but I always loved writing. Writing was something that always fascinated me, even as a kid. My mom always just always kept books around. She encouraged us to read. Matter of fact, she used to order these ebony pictorials. I don't know if some people might remember those.
Wow!
But,
wow! Yeah.
Yeah, those are classic. Matter of fact, if you still have them, you should probably keep them. But it was basically a timeline of the entire African American experience. I believe it started from actually the African experience. Excuse me. It started from the beginning of civilization in Africa, and I believe when we were kids, that was like in the 70s. So I think it kind of stopped somewhere during the civil rights movement. So it was like maybe a 3 or 4 volume pictorial, and that kind of introduced me to culture, to really understanding the importance of where we come from and the importance of constantly trying to reinvent ourselves. And I think that's why, interesting is we're talking about Black innovation because um, I was always fascinated with disruption. And in advertising, one of the things that you're tasked with or the challenge is how do you disrupt something? And for example, disruption always exists within that space. For example, in technology, tech disrupts tech. Google disrupted Yahoo. Yahoo was the greatest search engine out, and then all of a sudden, Google came out and totally disrupted it. Yahoo disrupted MySpace. Twitter disrupted the whole entire media landscape. So I was always fascinated with disruption. I was always fascinated how do I create something that now becomes the bar, but how do I do it in a way where I can help reinvent a narrative that already exists. And in the advertising world, one of the things you learn is that the story never changes. Clorox story never changes. McDonald's stories never changes. This is a part of our history. And so, but the goal in advertising is figure out how can we create a disruptive mechanism where in an authentic way where this story now becomes relevant to this day and time. Because even though a product may have invented itself maybe in the 1920s, and the product still lives today, you have to figure out a way to retell that story where it connects with people. So as a brand strategist, my job is to help brands connect, find a way for brands to emotionally connect with their audience or help them find their audience. And I think that's the biggest accomplishment because I consider myself a matchmaker. Anybody in branding consider yourself a matchmaker. Your job is to help the company and the consumer fall in love with each other.
Nice. Well, let's get down to it. You wanted to talk about Black innovation, and it was a good lead-in when you're talking about advertising and the state of advertising and, matchmaking, etc. And I love that. I love that definition of matchmaking. Why did you want to talk about that piece tonight? And also, what is the state of Black innovation, in your opinion, at this time?
Man, that's a great question, man. I think that, man, I hope whoever listens to this hears me clearly and doesn't get upset. But I don't really think there's any innovation going on within our community right now. I think we talked a little bit earlier about how disruption has to happen within the space. We talked about how tech disrupts tech. The fact that I believe that when we talk about great storytellers or we talk about great pioneers as it relates, like, for example, every time in sports, like right now we're dealing with something in the United States where we have a very polarizing president. And some of our quote unquote sports figures are taking stands or knees for lack of better words, not in protest of the flag, not in protest of the anthem, but in protest of social injustice. And unfortunately, the narrative has been changed. Matter of fact, the narrative has been flipped. It's been a counter narrative because no one wants to address it. No one wants to talk about it. So one of the things that we always talk about is well, we see LeBron and we see Colin Kaepernick, and all we talk about is we're still talking about Jackie Robinson. We're still talking about Muhammad Ali. We're still talking about some of the athletes that even today when we see athletes that are taking these great stands, they seem to be doing it at a fraction of the amount of effort. But I'm not going to say effort. It's almost like a fraction of the amount of influence that it's having on society and culture that those figures had then. And when you talk about innovation, you talk about disruption. What I see is that if you keep talking about if the bar is still Muhammad Ali, if the bar is still um, Jackie Robinson, if the bar is still Willie O'Lee, then where we innovated? Because what innovation does is establish new bars. That's where disruption lives.
So okay,
And
so let me ask you on that. Do you feel that in the example you're giving about black athletes, is it that they're not willing to take the risks that those of the past, that the Muhammad Ali's, the Jackie Robinsons, is that something, is that one of the reasons why you feel that there's a lack of innovation, because maybe we've become too comfortable?
yeah, 100%. Because think about what just happened. That's why I love our conversation. Think about what happened. Colin Kaepernick didn't bring the attention to himself. He was sitting down, and he decided, you know what, I'm going to sit down, and I'm going to protest against social injustice. And my way of protesting is I'm not going to stand for the national anthem. That was a silent protest. Well, they found him. The cameras found him. He didn't make it vocal. He didn't tweet about, say, hey, I want everybody to know starting today I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. So I just want everybody to know, if you see me sitting, this is why I'm sitting. Now, I'm not saying that's what he should have done, but what I'm saying is that's how the protest began. It began with a protest where he didn't want any attention even toward him. But then you can argue and say, is that indeed a protest? You know, if it's a protest where you don't want anyone to even know, or maybe, and you can even argue and say it is a protest because maybe the goal was to ask him why he's doing it. It's almost like, putting the banana on your head and hoping somebody asks you, why do you have a banana on your head? You know what I mean? So maybe that's what the goal was. So I'll give him the benefit of the doubt for that. But this is why I say not even close. If you notice, there were only maybe a handful, and I say a handful, I think I'm being generous, of people of other athletes, particularly within the NFL space, that actually supported him and ingratiated themselves with that cause. With that said, all of a sudden, when Donald Trump calls out the players and calls them a son of a B, every athlete all of a sudden wants to start kneeling. Now, my question is, when the protest was about social injustice, very few African American athletes decided to take a knee with Colin Kaepernick. But when Donald Trump called him a son of a B, they took a knee. Therefore, the knee had nothing to do with the protest. The knee had to do with, I felt insulted that you called me a son of a B. And so the fact now, and so we can argue and say you're 100% correct that they're not taking the stand because the stand wasn't even against social injustice when everybody started taking the knee. The stand was against, this president called me out of my name. And it just so happened to be a president that many, and let's just be honest, many didn't like anyway. So they took offense to that. And the fact they took offense to that, the protest and the narrative automatically changed. And all of a sudden now, what ended up happening was it had nothing to do with social injustice. I'll even go this far. It had nothing to even do with the flag or the anthem. And all of a sudden, the protest was directed 100% toward Donald Trump. So if they were truly passionate about social change and using their and using their quote unquote parentheses platform, and we'll talk about that later, to promote such change or to bring visibility to such change, they would have rallied behind Colin Kaepernick way before Donald Trump began to quote unquote chastise them for taking a knee.
Okay. I'm going to ask you a favor. I'm going to ask you to move to your, I'm going to say right.
Okay. All right.
No, other way. Move over.
This way.
Yeah. Move. If you can just slide over so you're more center in the screen, that would be.
Okay, great.
Yep. That's better. Excellent.
Okay.
All right. But so let's talk about the lack of black innovation and how it's related to the lack of economic control that blacks have, because I think they're very much correlated.
Very, very related. The reason why is because I think we tapped on it a little bit. I kind of put a little note in the last video that you did. And one of the things I said is there's a difference between using your platform and owning your platform.
Yes.
And when athletes say, "Well, I'm using my platform to do X, Y, and Z," right? Well, Colin Kaepernick thought he had a platform. Well, where's his platform at now? He was using the NFL that he identified as his platform, but he's no longer in the NFL. So what happens is that they get, I think they forget the fact that the NFL does not belong to them. They do not own the NFL. That's why you have owners and you have players. And the owners own the team, the players play for the team. And so when they say they're using their platform, all of a sudden what happened? Colin Kaepernick's platform was taken away from him. How? Because he was ostracized from the league. He was blackballed from the league. So now, where is your platform? Now, I'm not going to say he doesn't have a voice. He does have a voice. He has a voice. But he no longer has a platform. So how can you innovate? How can you disrupt when you don't have a platform that you own and control? And therefore, if you own and control the platform, you control the narrative. And that's what's most important. And so in innovation, think about it. When you even talking about innovation from an industrial standpoint, you talk about how, with Vanderbilt and how he innovated transportation with railroads. And then all of a sudden you see in that same era, you see Carnegie. And you see all these people take advantage, Rockefeller. All of these people were part of that industrial revolution. But every single one of them owned a specific portion of that industrial revolution, where each person provided value, where somebody had to make concession in order for the other person to continue to thrive during that industrial revolution. For example, the railroads that Vanderbilt revolutionized, because he actually started out in the boating industry. He was just doing ferries. And he said, wait a minute, we can do something even more innovative. So he started seeing what was going on with railroads. And so he disrupted transportation. That was disruption. It happened. So as we said, tech disrupt tech. Well, disruption happens in the space. So he disrupted the ferry transportation with railroads. Then what ended up happening is Rockefeller, who struck oil and all of a sudden made all this money with oil and started this whole thing with petroleum. He needed a way to be able to distribute his oil. So what ended up happening was he found out the best way of doing it was through the railroads. And then all of a sudden it ended up carrying over into what Carnegie was doing in the steel, which ended up carrying over to what Henry Ford was doing in transportation with automobiles. And what I'm saying is, what we haven't done is we haven't figured out a way to create an ecosystem. And that's very important. An ecosystem of ownership. And until we develop an ecosystem of ownership based on disruptive innovation, when are we ever going to get into a place where we begin to own our narrative, begin to have economic solidarity, and really begin to understand what freedom really is? Because if you want to ask a person what freedom looks like, it's ownership.
Question and a number of conversation pieces as we delve deeper into this. What do you feel are some of the factors preventing blacks not creating this ecosystem of ownership?
We don't know how to bootstrap. We've never been taught how to bootstrap. That's very important. Sadly, we've been told, and it's sad, by whites throughout history, to pick yourself up by your own bootstrap. As a matter of fact, Martin Luther King, one of his famous quotes was, and I'm paraphrasing, he says, well, you're asking us to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps, but you fail to realize that very few of us actually own boots. And that's very important. But the problem is we don't know how to bootstrap. And if you understand bootstrapping from an ecosystem standpoint, is that it has to be a corporate concept. If you look at what Black Wall Street was able to accomplish, if you look at what Booker T. Washington was able to accomplish, they all understood the importance of bootstrapping. We don't know how to bootstrap. And the reason why we don't know how to bootstrap is that we fail to realize that we have to be the boot. You know, when I talk to a lot of kids, because mentorship is very important to me, and I hear a lot of kids say, yeah, Mr. Jones, but I don't have this, I don't have that. But I said, but you have yourself, you have your mind, you have your drive, you have your hustle, you have your ideas, you have your creativity. You're the greatest commodity. You're the greatest resource. Capital is not just money. Relationships are capital. People are capital. So when you build relationships, you build capital. When you build, and with those relationships, you learn how to bootstrap. You learn that you are the bootstrap. And we haven't learned that. The difference between W.B. Du Bois and Booker T. Washington was fascinating. I think we all should study that, because what happens in history is that they always pit us against each other. They pitted Booker T. Washington against W.B. Du Bois, and they pitted Martin Luther King against Malcolm X. Now, what we learned with this is this. During that time, they both were right. W.B. Du Bois was like, look, man, we need to be able to use the same bathrooms. We need to be able to use this, go to the same schools. We need to be able to use the same transportation. It's not right that we can't eat in the same places, and we need to be able to get due justice. We want it right now. And he was 100% correct. There's nothing wrong with that ideology, because that's fair. That's 100% fair. Because last time I checked, that this country was founded on the principle that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. Even though we knew what they meant, it's fair for him to adopt that mindset. But what Booker T. Washington was saying was, look, that's not going to happen. And it's not going to happen until they need us. And in order for them to need us, we have to create economic solidarity. We have to innovate, and we have to disrupt the mindset of our community. And what we have to do is we have to build our institutions, build our municipalities, build our own schools, build our own infrastructure, so that we have ownership. And then when they realize that we don't need them, think about Tulsa. Think about it. This is very important. Black Wall Street, Greenwood, Tulsa, Oklahoma, which is so fascinating. They were not only known as Black Wall Street, they were also known as Little Africa, because they also traded commerce with other countries. They had basically their own small country. And that was the first time in United States history that a United States territory was bombed domestically by its own country.
Yep.
And think about it. Think about it. This is what I'm trying to tell you. This is how it goes full circle. If they're constantly telling you to pull yourself up by your own bootstrap, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pull yourself up by your own bootstrap. They're telling these athletes today. They're saying, it's not fair for you to protest because you're multimillionaires. So how dare you protest and you're a millionaire? Well, Colin Kaepernick wasn't protesting for himself. He was protesting for the people that didn't have a voice. And he thought he had a platform, so he said, I'll use my platform because they don't have a voice. Their voice won't resonate as loud as mine will. But if they're telling you to pull yourself up by your bootstrap, and Black Wall Street said, okay, we're going to do that, then why did they bomb Black Wall Street? They bombed Black Wall Street because they proved that we didn't need them anymore. And the goal, and so what it is it's a common duality. No, we don't want to help you. We want you to pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. But when you do, they get upset because you've done something that now puts them in a situation where they feel as though you can now control your own destiny. You have your own economic solidarity, and they don't need us anymore. And if they don't need us anymore, and they get that mindset and that mindset becomes generational, they're gonna create a whole ecosystem, and a generational ecosystem of wealth, of old money that's circulating within their own community. And what are we gonna do? You can't enslave people that's wealthy. You can't enslave people that's already economically empowered. How can you? So what do? You bomb their infrastructure. You bomb their schools, you bomb their hospitals, you put them in a state now where they have to rebuild and they don't have the resources to rebuild. So who do they have to go to? The government. People don't understand that was the beginning of welfare for African Americans. We never had, look, tell me before then. I challenge anybody. Tell me before then where you had black people asking for handouts. Think about it. Think about it.
Good point.
They put you in a state where they will put you in a state that say we need you, but most importantly, we need you to need us. And I think that's the challenge that we have. We don't know how to bootstrap, and in order to bootstrap, we have the roadmap, we have the blueprint. Booker T. Washington gave us a blueprint. For some reason, I think Dr. Vi was so sad is that people believe that, do you know the most radical people are the people that even blacks think were not very radical? They don't think Martin Luther King was radical. They thought Malcolm X was radical. They don't think Booker T. Washington was radical. They thought W.B. Du Bois was radical. Do you know that W.E.B. Du Bois was way less radical than Booker T. Washington? Martin Luther King was way less radical than Malcolm X. And I know some people are like, whoa, what do you mean? No. Listen to this. Martin Luther King was all about strategy. If you see, this is what they don't realize. Martin Luther King was not a punk. He was not a punk at all. He purposely chose nonviolence, not because he felt as though, well, let's just take it on the chin, let's get beat up. He chose because he wanted to insult America. He wanted the world to see who America really was. And in order to do that, he said that we have to let the world see how they're treating us. And if we fight, they control the narrative. That is why it's so important when there is injustice going on in our communities. The first thing we do is what we go in, the Black Wall Street mentality of bombing our communities, destroying everything. That's where that came from. The first thing we do is we go into our communities and we just start destroying stuff. We're destroying our own stuff. So this is what Martin Luther King did. He said, this is what we're going to do. All of our protests are always going to be, and I'm paraphrasing, I don't know the exact time, but I believe it was somewhere between 3 to 6. He would never do a protest after like 6 o'clock or march after 6 o'clock. Why? He said, because we got to make sure that all the cameras and the people that are filming, we're dealing with film now. This is not the digital age. There's no Twitter. There's no cell phone. This is like old school 50, 60 stuff, right? So he said they have to, every time they film the march and they film the water hose, they film the dogs attacking them, they film these black people getting beat and brutalized on the street. All of that was being recorded. And that's what Martin Luther King wanted. So he knew he had to do it early. He had to march early enough so that when they film it, they send the tape to New York and then they broadcast it nationally at 11 o'clock in the evening news so that the whole world could see, wait a minute, I thought America was bring me your poor, your wretched, the land of opportunity, the melting pot. When we see black people on TV, we always see them happy and dancing, and we didn't know that this was going on. That's what that was radical. They give me something more radical than that. Do you know when Martin Luther King, when he was doing all these, when he preached about racial injustice and all these different things, and yeah, they shook him up. They tried to scare him a little bit. They messed with him. But do you know, until he preached his last sermon, and I forget the exact words he used, but he said something to the man where America owed them a check, and it's time for them a blank check, and it's time for us to cash our check. That's when he got shot. Yeah. When he started preaching economic empowerment, that's when they killed him and said, whoa. Let's not talk about this economic empowerment stuff. Let's not tell people they need to start building and creating and owning and innovating. No. We're okay with them wanting to use the bathroom and stuff. But no, don't empower these people. That's not what we want. That's radicalism. But somehow we don't think that's radicalism because we think radicalism is grabbing your bat, going down the street, breaking. No, radicalism is being so strategic that they don't see you coming. They don't even know what you're doing. That's a riot. Our riot should be so powerful. I put it like this, should be so stealth that so strategic that they study it. Because history has always taught us that the greatest advancements have come during war or threat of war. But if they see, so the biggest rules is when we actually think that when we have social injustice and we have something like Philando Castile, Trayvon Martin, all these, Sandra Bland, the list goes on, that they actually don't think that we're not going to riot. They know we're going to riot. They want us to riot, because guess what happens? The story no longer becomes about the innocent kid, unarmed kid that was shot. The video does what? The video shows everybody rioting in the streets, tearing stuff, flipping cars. That's their strategy. Well, isn't that the same strategy Martin Luther King used? To take the film, control the narrative, so that he controls what the world sees. That's what's going on today. They control the narrative. They control what the world sees. That's why Trump tweets all the time. It's a complete distraction, because what has he done since he's been in office? We have no tax reform, no health care bill. He hasn't accomplished anything. When the market goes up, he tweets and says, "Look at what I've done." When the market goes down, because I'm heavy in the stock market, he don't say a word. So he takes credit for everything good, but wants to absolve himself of anything that goes wrong. So I think, and I know I kind of went on a little bit, but I think
It's okay.
But I think that really speaks to the importance of innovation and understanding that we have to learn how to bootstrap. We have to learn how to be strategic in our innovation.
And you've covered many years in history here. Do you feel the barriers to innovation for Blacks have changed, or have the same root challenges existed over the years?
Repeat that one more time.
I'm just saying that you've given some great Black history over the last few minutes. Just saying, do you feel the barriers to innovation for Blacks, the same core challenges, are the same now as they were 10, 15, 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago? Are they still the same core challenges?
Core challenges, yes. Core challenges. So, yes. Now, when I say core challenge, I mean racism is racism. Discrimination is discrimination. So that is the core challenge. Classism is classism. Those are the core challenge. Now, how those things are implemented are completely different today. Now, on the flip side, we have much more opportunity, thankfully, to those that came before us, and to technology and the things that have been innovated, that we can build a business in our bedroom just with e-commerce. Just with e-commerce. We can literally you can sit in your bedroom, get on the computer, register a domain, get some product from out your closet, like people are doing this, and build an e-commerce system.
Yep.
I mean, people are doing that right now. So it's fair to say, because there are people that are still underserved, there are people that are still disenfranchised, it's fair to say, yes, the core principle, but it would be unfair to those that came before us that had to carry much of a heavy burden than we do today to say it's the same. But the core principles are the same, because you know, at the end of the day, we're still dealing with the same thing. We're just dealing with it differently.
Okay, great. Do you see any evidence of disruption innovation by Blacks in any areas right now?
I see some in technology, not enough, but I see some in technology. I even see some in believe it or not, in the math and science area, in the STEM area, but not enough. The reason why I say not enough is because we're part of the team of disruption. We're not when George Washington Carver disrupted uh, um, agriculture just with the peanut, he owned that disruption mechanism. He wasn't a part of a group of people. Like I forget. Forgive me. Maybe there's some people that may be able to add in the comments later. I don't know if it was Alexander Graham Bell or Thomas Edison, but there was an African American that was a part of one of those revolutions. I believe with either the light bulb or the telegraph. But even though he was a part of disruption, he wasn't leading that disruption. So we have a lot of people that is that's a part of a lot of African Americans that's a part of innovation, but we're not leading it, and that's what's important. And when you're not leading it, and it's not about taking credit, it's about owning those intellectual properties, owning those patents. See, that's what it's about. Forget the credit. I don't want the credit. Allow me to own the intellectual property. Allow me to own those patents, because that's where the power is. That's where the money is. So we don't own. We're not leading disruption, and we're not owning the intellectual properties within that disruption. And I think that's what we're missing out on.
So if this has been like the elephant in the room for so long, why aren't more blacks getting it?
We're in the age of influence. Think about it. We talked about how Twitter has disrupted media. You have people, which is so fascinating, who make, like, I went and spoke to Florida A&M University. I was asked to speak to the freshman class graduating to the sophomore class, and after I spoke, some of the kids came up to me, and one of the kids came up to me and said, man, I really enjoyed the talk and everything, and so he kind of wanted me to kind of mentor him. And one of the things I said, when I asked him, I said, well, what are you interested in doing? He said, I want to be an influencer. I said, I want to be an influencer. I said, oh, okay, well, what is an influencer?
That's interesting.
Yeah, and so he was like, well, and then he began to explain. I said, oh, okay, so what he meant was, and once he said, I understood what he meant. Basically, you can just Google it. Basically, social media now is filled with this Kardashian movement of influence, where you have all these people that want to get as many followers on social media as they can, Facebook, Twitter, all these different things, so they can get paid to influence you into making purchases or this and that and blah blah blah. So basically, the reason why I say that is because when you are part of a culture that's based on influence, the exact opposite of influence is innovation. And that's because social media right now is influence. See, when you're influenced, you're not leading anything. Think about it. You're following. Innovation, you're actually cultivating, building, creating, and you're leading something. So I think the reason why is because I'm just going to be honest, we as African Americans, see, look, if you own a network, it's not a coincidence that BET, that's no longer owned by Bob Johnson, it's no longer a black-owned business, owned by Viacom. Don't get upset when BET is putting out, these VH1 Love and Hip Hop shows and all this, whatever this stuff is. Don't get upset with them, because the only reason why they do that is because they have done the test. I'm in advertising. They've done the test. They know what you're influenced by. They know what you like to watch. I'm not saying all of us. We're not a monolith. I get that. I'm saying if you're not. I'm not talking about the exceptions to the rule. I'm saying that whatever that demographic is that they've tapped into, they know that this is what they look. I don't want to bash this website, but it is what it is. There's a website called Media Takeout. It is the most ratchet.
But I'm going to interrupt you, because what's interesting on this conversation about innovation, and especially innovation of thought. You mentioned a BET, but there's also other websites like The Root, like Griot. They are not black owned. You may see a lot.
No, they're owned. Griot's owned by NBC, I think, or something like that. Yeah. No, you're 100% correct.
And even though the content people will see is black focused, the major decisions on what content comes out
Yeah.
is not made by
There
those
you
who
go.
are black.
Yeah. Great point. See, and that's what I meant by the platform. Black. That's a fascinating point. Black voices that actually, like maybe 15 years ago, was like really like relevant. I mean, they would talk about some serious subject matter and address some serious issues, and it had an entertainment aspect to it as well, which was great. But AOL owns Black Voices now. You
Yep.
know, and so
Yep.
so 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 we create these Look, I'm not telling anyone not to have an exit plan. I understand what an exit plan is. I've
Yes,
had
you
an
do.
exit plan.
Yes, you did.
Exit plan. There's nothing wrong with an exit plan. But what I'm saying is when we create, when don't get upset and say, well, BET is doing it. BET is not black owned. These are people who literally see that this is what they're only gonna give you what they believe you want to watch. And the reason why I brought up media takeout was not to bash media takeout, but I wanted to say this: Donald Trump, when he got elected, when he's president elect, you can research this. I remember the day it happened. This is an absolute fact. This is not alternative fact. This is not fake news. He issued his economic plan for how he wanted to revitalize African Americans on media takeout. That's the
Wow.
website. Now, I don't know. Listen, this is important. Do you know why he chose media takeout? Because media takeout is the most watched, most viewed website by African Americans in the country. The numbers are ridiculous. So, do you really blame him?
No, he's
He,
smart.
he's not reading the content. He doesn't care. What he basically did. He went to someone on his team. He says, "Hey, I want to issue out a statement. Get what site do most blacks go to?" And they say, "Hey, it's some site called Media Takeout. Hey, let's put it on there." That's all he did. He didn't care. He just wanted to make sure he got to as many black people as possible. That's a shame. That's an absolute shame. So what ended up happening is what he failed to realize is that he didn't even speak to the people that's even concerned about economic solidarity. They're more concerned about Nicki Minaj booty implants than economic solidarity. That's the audience for media takeout. So you literally issued out a plan that you thought that you felt as though was important for the African American community. That's going to help the underserved community, help us revitalize ourselves, our education, our economics, etc., etc. You put it on a website that doesn't even speak to the people that are concerned about those issues. Think about it. Because all he looked at was numbers. That's very important. He looked at numbers. And that's why it's important for us to build and innovate, because what that proves is we are numbers. See, this is very important. Donald Trump is the first president that actually chose his voters. Think about it. We live in a democracy, and where even though we have electoral college, we live in a democracy where we go into the voting booth and we pull the lever, we punch the tab, whatever it is you do right now. And you say, hey, this is who I want. This is who I feel as though speaks to my core values, and I'm going to exercise my right to vote. And because I live in democracy, and I feel it's important that my voice is heard, my voice is counted, my vote is counted. We live in democracy. Donald Trump won an election not because people voted for him, because he found a base of people. He found a base of people. Listen carefully. He found a base of people he found rural white men who was able to convince Donald Trump that they were minorities. Think about that. That they were the ones underserved and disenfranchised. Think about that. They said, hey, because this is where people gotta learn. This is where we gotta wake up. We have to stop saying the system is broke. The system's not broke. The system has never been broke. If you think the system is broke, then you haven't read the manual. If you think the system is broke, you haven't read the Constitution. If you think the system is broke, the system is doing exactly what it's designed to do. You know when the system was breaking, Dr. Vibe? The system was breaking when Barack Obama became president. That's when the system was breaking. That's when they started saying, whoa, We want our country back because this is not the way it's supposed to be. The system is breaking now. That's why that's why Trump was able to galvanize a bunch of angry people. Look at his rallies. Those were some of the most horrific rallies. There was a rally when he was pushing a little black girl around like she was like she was nothing. Some dude punches a black kid and just knocks him out, and then Donald Trump said, "Hey, don't worry about it. I'll pay for your bail or whatever it is." Those were his rallies. He chose a group of people that actually convinced him that they were the underserved because they felt as though that the country was becoming too brown and they were losing due to immigration, due to all these different things that they felt as though violated the quote unquote purity of America. They were the disenfranchised. They were the underserved. He picked them and said, I'm going to speak to those people, and that's how he won.
You shared that you do lectures, etc. Do you see a hope of innovation for the future of young Black America? Are you seeing that? Because you brought up those examples of following another person that's been brought up a lot lately. This performer Cardi B, is that her name?
Yeah, I'm familiar with Cardi B. My daughter's listening to Cardi B.
Yeah, and like young Blacks, they have grown up in a society where technology is rampant. Probably the greatest time to be innovative.
Oh man, exactly.
But I get a concern that there's still that mindset that Blacks are consumers, not producers.
That's it. Yeah, you nailed it. You nailed it. And I think that's why it's important. And I think that's why the topic of innovation. I was a little concerned at first about the innovation topic, but the more we have this conversation is making perfect sense. What you just said is important. We're the biggest consumers of technologies, but we're the least among the producers of technology. I forget the numbers. Matter of fact, you know what? I'll pull it up right now. Give me 1 second. It's actually pretty crazy. Here it is. I pulled it up really quick. In 2016, this is consumers. In 2016, we spent $2 billion on Air Jordans.
How much?
$2 billion.
Get out.
Yeah. We spent $4 billion on liquor and alcohol. We spent $600 million on fast food. African American right now, that's another thing. We are suffering from obesity is running rapid in our community.
But see, now when you bring up those sort of statistics, it almost seems that we keep on doing the same thing over and over again.
Expecting different results.
Many. I'm not saying we, but many.
Well, look. You're right. We have to say we. And the reason why you have to say we is because even though we're not a monolith, we have to realize we're in this together.
True.
And so you're right. It is we. Even though you have a different mindset, and the goal is to find like-minded individuals like yourself to try to see what can we do to be the change. We still have to say we because because at the end of the day, I have such a love for my community and a passion for my community that I would never separate myself. Just like you. That's why you saying we is important. We have to make sure that we're always ingratiated within our, because at the end of the day, the goal is to create an ecosystem. And if you're going to create an ecosystem, it has to be something where we all figure out a way to figure out what our abilities, our talents are, so that our money circulates. See, there's 4 essential institutions needed for a community, and that's why we have to learn how to innovate, how to create an ecosystem. The 4 essential ecosystems needed for a community is banking. You got to have a bank. Well, Black Wall Street had that. Schools. Black Wall Street had that. Booker T. Washington. These are things Booker T. Washington said was very important. Markets. You got to have places to be groceries, to get your food and different things like that. And you need a hospital.
So those things you just listed right now, does Black America have any of those in a semblance right now, in your opinion?
Well, there's some Black-owned banks. There are there are people there are black charter schools.
Well, it's interesting.
There,
I'll speak here from a Canadian perspective. There is not a black-owned bank that I know of in Canada.
yeah. There's not a lot. Period. So let's just be
Yeah,
honest. But I don't want to dismiss the accomplishments of those that I know that are working hard. So
sure.
I want to make sure that when I say that there are some, there are some. But this is the thing. They're not working as a conglomerate to circulate the money within a ecosystem,
So
and that's
this
what's
this
important.
so this
They're
is
moving independently from each other.
so this is it. What is preventing things like that from happening? Is it that we always hear this thing? We don't trust each other. We don't want to work together. And if we don't work together, we're not going to get the innovation that we need to get. Is that not correct?
Yeah, I think it goes back to we don't know how to bootstrap. I mean, honestly, look, this is okay. When I started my business, I bootstrapped my business. And anybody who understands bootstrapping, they know all bootstrapping is saying, okay, the money I'm not going to take any, I'm not going to get any loans, any investments, anything like that. I'm going to build my company off of the money I make building my company. So the money that I make, I'm going to take almost all of that money except for what I need to basically breathe.
And put it back
And
in.
I'm going to put it right back in the company.
Yep.
And it's just gonna be, it's just gonna keep circulating. It's just gonna just keep getting to the company.
Just like the mouse on the wheel in the
there you
mouse
go.
in the
There you go.
cage.
You feeding the company. You don't eat, the company eats. You know what I'm saying? You just keep feeding the company. That's bootstrapping. That's bootstrapping. We don't know how to bootstrap as a as a community, and I think we need to develop some type of we need to develop some type of for lack of better words, community wallet. And the reason why, I don't know why this is the name that came on top of my head. And the reason why I say that is a way of figuring out how can we establish how okay, here we go. How can we establish and figure out a way to connect the four essential institutions needed for a community, even though they may not be within the same zip code or area code.
That don't matter. That don't matter anymore.
Exactly.
We're living in a digital age.
There you go. That's
There
what I
we
was
go.
just about to say. There you go. There you go. Because now we don't have to, because we have e-commerce. We have technology. We have the internet.
We have Bitcoin.
We have Bitcoin. There you go. We have cryptocurrency. You know what? It's so funny. Let me tell you a fascinating story about that. I've been investing in cryptocurrency. I'm not an early person for probably about a little over a year. And I've seen some huge gains out of it. Now, I don't go crazy with it. What I do is I always wait for a dip. So if there's a dip I only invest in 3 coins right now: Bitcoin, Ether, and Litecoin. So every time there's a massive dip, I have an app that gives me alerts. I put certain alerts. If it drops to this point, I maybe put $50 in there. You know, I just buy. You know, I'll just buy a little cryptocurrency, right? Well, last year I had a friend of mine, and I was telling him about, man, you need to get into this Bitcoin thing, right? He was like, man, what's Bitcoin? I was like, dude, trust me, it's a decentralized currency. And I went into the whole thing, etc. He's like, man, I don't know, man. That stuff is gonna, I don't trust that stuff. It's just gonna be a fad. It's gonna blow. I said, hey, man, I don't know. I'm a tech guy. I'm a geek. I said, look, and plus, I like investing. Anybody that knows me, my friends that know me, my kids that know me, I invest in domains. I invest in property. I invest in stocks. I invest in ETFs. I am an investor. I love to invest. I like to see money grow. You know what I'm saying? So that's just me. With that said, I was in Orlando, and it was at an event that a friend of mine had thrown. And so I was like, look, man, in Tallahassee, we don't have Bitcoin machines. I found out they have Bitcoin machines here. So I went on Google Maps, and I searched for the closest Bitcoin machine. I said, hey, I found one. Do you want to ride with me? He said, sure, I'll ride with you.
Yeah.
So we're driving. This is a true story. We're driving, and as we're driving in Orlando, Google Map is taking us, and we're going into like one of the worst areas in Orlando. And on the screen, it's showing me there's gonna be some type of bank. And we're looking at each other like, we don't see no bank. Like, there's no bank. And we're getting into an area where ain't no banks in this area. It's like, there's a lot of stuff in this area, but there's no banks. Make a long story short, all of a sudden, the Google Map thing tells us to turn around, and it says make a U-turn here, pull into here. Well, it's a convenience store. And when we go into, and then when we pull into the convenience store, sure enough, there is a sticker on the window of the convenience store that says Bitcoin machine.
Oh
I'm like,
gosh.
go figure, right? So I go in the convenience store. Check, this is very important.
Mm.
And there it is. So I get my phone. I do the little thing with my QR code and everything, and I put some money in, and I get my Bitcoin. And I'm like, wow, this was pretty cool. So we get in the car. As soon as we get in the car, my friend who's sitting next to me, he was like, look. I'm like, what? He's like, look. There is a guy. Now look, I'm just gonna keep it 100. I don't judge anybody, but I'm from the hood. I'm gonna keep it 100. So I know what I know, and I know what I see.
Yeah.
So we see a guy of a particular profession,
Okay.
and he has about this much money, and he's just putting it in the Bitcoin machine, just like I mean, and he's looking around like this, and he's just like dropping in the Bitcoin machine, right? And we're looking at each other like, yeah, but first of all, and this is where I'm headed. That was the most. I'm not condoning his profession, but this person gets it. This is a person that actually now, but he's getting it for the wrong reason. He's not looking at it from an investment. He's looking at it way for to make sure if he ever gets pulled over, gets caught, you can't find no cash on me because I figured out a way to put it in a decentralized area where you don't even know where it's at. You can't access it, so you can't get it off me. So even though the intention may not be something that you would identify as being fiscally responsible, he understands it. He gets it.
He gets it.
He absolutely gets it. And this is the thing. That's why I like mentoring and going into communities where in underserved areas where you're really talking with kids that know how to hustle, that understand business, they understand strategy, they understand marketing, they understand risk. Think about it. They know risk better than anyone.
Yep.
So what I like to do is teach these kids the stock market. Teach these kids, understand, find out what these kids' talents are. You know, are you interested in coding? Do you want to learn how to write code? Do you want to learn how to do X, Y, and Z? Because I know that these are kids that know risk. They understand the fundamental principles of business, and all we have to do is figure out as a community is redirect that energy in a direction where now we're creating young, innovative minds. Because they already have it. They just need someone to nurture it. They just need someone to pull. The problem is we're trying to push people, Dr. Vibe, in the right direction, but we're not leading them in the right direction.
Big point.
And there's a difference.
Big point.
Yeah.
Big point. Very big point. So, and I think that was a good message you just gave out. Instead of pushing, instead of leading. When it comes to innovation, where do you see where the lead should go to? What areas should Blacks be leading to?
Technology. I mean, we're in the digital age. We just finished talking about, and that's just my opinion. You know, somebody else might say science, somebody else might say medical. And I don't think anybody's wrong, but I'm gonna say technology because this is why. People, look, I don't know what's gonna happen with cryptocurrency. I don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen with Bitcoin. I don't know. You know, you have people that are saying, man, it's a bubble. It's gonna do this, but this is what I do know. I do know that it's always been the electronic and digital technology that's always disrupted what we thought was the most cutting and leading edge technology at that time. For example, I grew up, telling my age, where I used to ride in the car with my uncle and he put an 8-track in the car.
There you go.
The first thing I ever heard in the car was a comedy special with Richard Pryor. I think it was Sunset something. I don't remember what the title was.
Yeah, I know. I remember. I don't remember the complete name, but I know Sunset something. Yes.
And it was on an 8-track.
Yeah.
all of a sudden I remember these cassette tapes come out, right? And everybody was like, "Yo, man, it's cassette tape, but everybody can have them." So you had to buy like these boom boxes, different things to. So what ended up happening? That the tape disrupted, and a lot of people and a lot of people were I remember very weary about it because they kept getting stuck and the little string things. Like, no, this thing's not gonna work. But it blew up. And a matter of fact, it revolutionized the music industry. Literally revolutionized the music industry. Okay, then guess what happens next? The CD comes out. People were very resistant with CDs. I remember that.
Oh yeah, I do too. Oh yeah.
This thing, not only because it was like it was the cost. It was like I don't know. And remember, every time there's something disruptive, there's a mechanism that has to be created to play that.
Yep.
So now you got this investment involved. There's all these different things, and people don't want to jump into that invest. So, but guess what happens? CD turns around and revolutionizes the music industry and technology in the industry. It revolutionizes data because of how we store information.
Here's another thing. I guess another word: Napster.
There it is. Napster. Exactly. And so I'll end with this one. I remember when people didn't want to write checks. Man, I'm cash. I like to just deal with cash. All of a sudden, people gravitated with checks. And what happened next? The debit card comes out. People didn't want to deal with debit card. Man, I don't know, man. I don't trust that stuff, blah, blah, blah. Now, get in line. Try getting in line at the grocery store and somebody in front of you writing a check. Man, you lose your lid if somebody's in front of you sitting there writing a check. What I'm saying is this. Like I said, I don't know what's going to happen with Bitcoin. What I do bet on is technology. And so by betting on a digital currency, what I'm understanding is this. Every time we feel as though something's not going to work, whether it's the CD, whether it's the debit card, whatever it is, it always turns out being the thing that ends up being the most disruptive item that changes how we communicate, how we engage in commerce, how we engage in technology. So what's the difference between that and Bitcoin? Because I'm in an industry of creative people, and I remember when we used to only deal with print. I'm telling my age, but we were only dealing with print. And when the whole digital web development and all that stuff came out, a lot of my friends were like, man, I'm not gonna do that web stuff. I'm gonna learn how to program and code. And I was like, man, I want to learn. Now I hate to say, but they're living a very antiquated. They're in very antiquated spaces right now in their industry. Like seriously, they're like miserable, and a lot of them had just went into other different areas because they refuse to ingratiate themselves with technology in the digital space. I feel like what's the difference between all these things we mentioned and digital currency? What's the difference? Mm-hmm. So that's why I say technology, because if everything now is on this phone. Everything. You know, you don't need a business card anymore. Now, if you tell somebody who you are, your website is your digital footprint. They're gonna say, okay, who are you? They're gonna go on their phone. They're gonna look you up. So right now, everything now we communicate, and we talked about how tech disrupted tech, how Google disrupted Yahoo. Well, you can argue and say these phones have disrupted how we communicate, how we talk. Email is no longer, I mean, it used to be writing a letter was the most professional way to provide a particular correspondence. And all of a sudden, letters weren't professional anymore. It was archaic, and the email was the most professional way now. That's like the standard professional way of delivering communication now. Well, now, texting is becoming the more professional way, because now I have clients that text me now. They don't even email me; they just text me.
Well, and it's interesting because I use another thing. I actually send videos to people via DM. I actually sent one to you. So
it's funny you said that. And the next thing I was going to go was Twitter, because now the Twitter is now becoming like the less professional but more casual way of communicating, like texting was to email.
Yep.
And so what I'm saying is you can't dismiss what's going on in technology. And and if we are the biggest and the largest consumers of technology, wouldn't it make sense for us to start becoming some of the largest groups of producers in technology? It only makes sense because at least what that does is that look, and the reason why I say technology too, you know what? Agriculture now, everything you see in agriculture advancements is dealing with technology. What you see advancements in science now is technology. So really, any innovation that we're going to probably see between now and the next 100 years, it's going to be technology driven. And we're so behind in that in that evolution in that evolution of innovation because we're just sitting there saying, okay, what's next? What else can I consume? What else do you have for me? Instead of us actually building out these platforms.
Well, as we wind down the conversation, as you can see, myself and Askia could go on for hours. We'll do some more of these conversations. As we wind down, what sort of calls to action do you have for Blacks when it comes to innovation? Yeah, I know you've discussed some. Any other things that you'd like to suggestions to get them engaged, to get them get going?
Wow, man, all I can say is build.
Yeah.
I tell it to my kids. If my kids were in here, I constantly, I'm doing something very interesting this year. None of them are in here, so. And I told them, I said, I got a gift I'm going to give y'all this year, and they don't know what I'm going to give them for Christmas this year. All three, what I've been doing for the past year is picking their heads, finding out what they're passionate about, what they like, what they want to do. And I know all the things that they're fascinated about, what they like. And then I've been even picking about things they like to purchase and things like that, things they like to spend their time on. So I'm in the process for all three of my daughters building e-commerce platforms to each one of them based on products and services that they like. And this holiday season, I'm going to give them the greatest gift I can give them, and that's a business.
Boom! Very, very, very good.
So I say build.
Excellent. What I'm going to do first. Okay. I will say thank you so much for sharing with us as always. It's been too long.
Oh, thank you, man. I enjoy it, man.
And anytime you want to come back, the mic is always open. And I may chase you down so we have some more regular conversations. So I know you got a family to lead. You got a business to lead. What are the best ways if people want to reach out to you? How is the best way for them to contact you?
Man, you know me, Dr. Vine. I'm where I'm at, man. You find me underground, man. I like to move in stealth mode. You can't stop what you can't see.
Well done. That's interesting. I saw the website that you are. What is that all about?
Flat Park. That's my actual boutique agency.
Okay.
Remember the way the acquisition ended up turning out was I was able to keep. They basically bought out my client base, my client list. That's what they ended up purchasing. So I was able to keep the title and everything as long as, and that's why the agreement was to kind of complete a couple of projects with certain clients because they wanted me to still be there during that transition because I had the relationship.
Yes.
With the clients, and I'll end with this too. I think this is important. I think it's important for us to understand if we have to learn how to bootstrap. Bootstrapping is understanding that you may not have boots, but you have your mind. You have your fervor, your fortitude. You have the ability to think. You have the ability to reason. You have the ability to create. You have the ability to wonder. You have the ability to dream. If you have that, you can bootstrap because you become the bootstrap. And if you learn how to bootstrap, you learn how that you are the greatest form of capital because no amount of money can provide more value than you. I promise you that. If you tap into that, that's important. So if you understand that people will invest in you because they realize that you are the greatest value capital that they can ever put their hands on. And so find ways to bootstrap. Find ways to realize that, look, yes, I may be limited in X, Y, and Z. I may be limited in this and that. But you understand that relationships, resources is the greatest capital. And that's how we bootstrap. That's how you build an ecosystem. That's how you innovate. That's how we disrupt. And if we can learn how to do that, and then when you do that, find ways to connect with other people so that we can figure out how we can circulate this currency and we can begin to really build something special.
All right. That is good stuff. And I'm going to add on some stuff before we sign off here. It is Dr. Vibe here. I'm host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe show. As always, I like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. Also know I'm president and CEO of Express Your Vibe Coaching and Communications. If you want to listen to any rebroadcast audio-wise of my epic conversations, you can go to my website, thedrvibeshow.com. You can go to Stitcher Radio, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcast, Google Play Music Store, and then selected audio replays are on thegoodmenproject.com and also on wjmsradio.com. You can catch replays of these video conversations like this at my YouTube page, which is about 270 subscribers. If you feel up to it, would love you to become a subscriber. Also, I am a brand representative for the only African American website that's dedicated to African Americans in food, wine, and travel called cuisinenoir.com. Also, certified empowerment coach. If you'd like to have a complimentary 30-minute session, touch base with me at Twitter at drvibeshow, email address dr.vibe at the drvibeshow.com. Also, there's a contact form on the website. Now, I usually end off with 2 or 3 things, but I have a few things that I want to end off with today. Askia has mentioned disruption. Very important, and also diversity. Make sure you disrupt, but it has a positive impact on as many and as wide as people as possible. Next thing I'm going to give you some thought process here. If you shut your mind, you will close the minds of the people around you. The innovators will leave and take their ideas with them, and the status quoers will remain.
Like that.
Next up, the next generation product and idea almost never comes from the previous generation.
Wow. Nice.
Now, the 3 things I finish off with. And Askia mentioned this recently about dreaming. As I say, live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. And then sometimes you have to get smaller to get stronger.
Nice.
So on that note, epic conversation. Askia will be back when he has time. This has been great. And please, comments, feedbacks, always appreciated. God bless. Peace to all. Keep the faith. And we will catch you soon on the Dr. Vibe Show. What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning The Dr. Vibe Show. I have hosted and produced over 2,000 epic conversations over the last 10 years. And what makes our conversations epic? We don't do interviews. We do conversations.